morning. Thanks for joining us. I want to welcome Dr. Joanne McCormack, who's agreed to have a chat with me this morning. And I've asked Dr. Joanne McCormack to come and have a chat because there are questions that we get asked on the Keep Fat Club and also on the Warrington Low Carbohydrate group that I'm not really qualified to answer. And Dr. Joanne McCormack has been a GP in Warrington for well over 30 years, is a trustee and a founding member of the Public Health Collaboration. And so she's well known and well respected in the low carbohydrate environment, if that's the right word to use. So welcome, Jo. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Hi, thanks very much, Treflyn.
One of the questions that has been crossing my mind, and I know it's important to everybody really, is that a lot of people, when they start doing a diet or changing the way that they eat their food, a lot of people will say to them, well, you shouldn't do that. You need to take medical advice before you do that. So they go to their doctors, and then the doctors say, no, you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be doing that. You need to eat your 5 a day. You need to look at the Eat Well plate. And that's the way to go. And then obviously these people, most of them are overweight or have got some underlying health issues. So how would you deal with that if somebody came to you asking you for dietary advice as a GP, please?
Well, I'm very different to other doctors because I've had training in low carb and behaviour change, and I've had training in intermittent fasting and ketogenic diets, and that's all been triggered by things I wanted to do myself. They weren't part of my medical training. So if somebody came to me, I would say, that's fantastic. I would alter the medication if necessary, and I would ask them to come for follow-up and have some follow-up tests. But I have to acknowledge that most doctors aren't like that. So unless you know that your doctor teaches low carb, and if they teach low carb, they probably practice it themselves. Unless you know your doctor does that, and I'd probably be more in favour of just letting your doctor know, letting your nurse know that you're doing this, that you're following the advice given on whichever site it is, whether it's dietdoctor.com or you're going to Treflyn's Keep Fat Club, or you're going to the low carb program, or you're following diabetes.co.uk, which is a forum for low carb people. And as you know, I would more inform that you're doing it. I would let them know that there's a module available from the Royal College of General Practitioners for GPs that's free on the low carb diet, which is very positive. And I would suggest that having the normal follow-ups, but making it clear to your doctor when you have your follow-up that you've been following a low carb diet for, whatever it is, so many months, and seeing how your results change with your low carb diet. Also maybe telling your doctor how you're feeling, how you feel different. You might say to your doctor, I feel less tired in the afternoons. You might say, I've lost a stone in weight. You might say, I've been able to cut down my pain medication. There are lots of things you could let your doctor know without him or her having to get back to you. And I suspect that if you approached it as in, this is what I'm doing, these are the websites I've had advice from, let me know if you've got a problem. I think a lot of doctors would say nothing to that. They might just acknowledge, thank you for your email, let me know how you get on, for instance. Whereas if you say to a doctor, what do you think about the low carbohydrate diet? I would suspect that maybe 90% or more would say, I really can't comment. I've read something, and most of their knowledge will be from the confusing messages in the media. But if you say to them, just to let you know, I'm following a low carbohydrate diet and I've sought advice from Diet Doctor, which is a recognized site full of doctors who know about this sort of thing, they would feel reasonably reassured. They might not know what to do about your medication, but there are sections on most of these websites that tell you what to do with medication. And for instance, if you're just overweight and you're not on any medication, you don't need to alter anything. If you're just on metformin, you don't need to alter anything. So there are other ways you can find out about medication without actually going face-to-face with your doctor and saying, what do you think about a low-carb diet or ketogenic diet? Because most doctors don't know anything really about, you can ask them, do you know about it? And they'll come back and say, no, I don't know anything. Or I'm worried about your heart and cholesterol, for instance. But if you put it to them that you're doing it, you're going to be sensible, you're going to have monitoring done. If you put it to them that you're going to come along for your regular checks and you'll discuss your cholesterol should it be an issue, for instance, well, they'll be happy just to tick box that and let you move along. And I think, especially in the time of COVID, where most people communicate with the doctors via email, like the e-consults, or via telephone, I think it's absolutely fine to inform them. Obviously, you're really not going to want to waste a doctor's phone call time on just to let you know I'm following a low carbohydrate diet. But if you put it in writing, it'll go into your medical records and say, just to let you know I'm following a low carbohydrate diet, just to let you know I'm doing 1 meal a day, just to let you know I'm doing intermittent fasting, or I'm following the blood sugar diet by Dr. Michael Mosley. And actually, I think if you quoted a respected doctor and said you were following their plan, they actually would have no problem with that whatsoever.
Thank you for that. When I started doing this, I was I use the word self-medicating or taking advice from different people that I found on YouTube, and that was my only source of information. And it was by chance that I came across Dr. David Unwin, and then he mentioned your name, and then we met. I won't go into that. And then I ended up running the support groups for you, and my learning journey started then. And I hadn't heard of the ketogenic diet until I actually started running the support group and rubbing shoulders with other people and saying, are you on the keto diet? And I said, what's that? And then when I looked at it and saw the macros and that you eat a lot of fat, it was then I discovered, because I was keeping a journal, that my weight loss stalled. So that was a great learning curve for me. And obviously with COVID and with lockdown, I found myself doing what I'm doing now. It's so reassuring to know that you're there and that you've been there, done it, and you've got the T-shirts. And obviously your involvement with the public health collaboration means such a lot. Would you like to speak about that, please, Dr. Jones, just to explain to people who may have heard or may not have heard about the public health collaboration, what it is that you're trying to do through there, please?
Okay, so the Public Health Collaboration is a charity which was founded by several doctors and a dietitian and a psychologist. And some of the doctors are from secondary care. For instance, there's a cardiologist and a diabetologist. And some of the doctors are from primary care. There's myself, Dr. Ian Lake, Dr. Campbell Murdoch. And so we're all doctors who follow the low carbohydrate diet ourselves to varying degrees, because everybody's body is different. Some of us are quite active politically and try and get stories in the news and talk on television and radio. And some of us are, and also with MPs, some of us do put articles, say, in the Daily Mail. Dr. David Unwin's put a lot of articles in the Daily Mail to do with recipes and diet. And we're trying to train. We've got a lot of ambassadors, so we've got something like 250 ambassadors, and our aim is to train them to work in primary care, to teach low carbohydrate ways of living, to teach behavioural change. So that's the latest phase of our development. Yeah, that's about it, really. I suppose in some ways it's a lobby group, in some ways it's an education group. So we do talks for GPs and nurses, which are very, very popular. And we have an annual conference coming up. So that will be, available on our YouTube channel.
That's really, really good. I believe that your own journey into the low carbohydrate world came as a result of your sister who was struggling with severe arthritis. Can you just talk about that for a short while, if that's okay, please?
Sure. So my sister had young children, and her arthritis was so bad that she couldn't get out of the cart. She had a lot of difficulty getting up and going to the bathroom. And then when she struggled to take them to school, she couldn't actually get out of the car, and she used to have, ask other mums to take the children in. This is obviously well before COVID. It was probably in about 2013, 2014. And her arthritis was so bad she couldn't work, and she was off sick for a long time. And I had anecdotally heard of people whose arthritis had got better with diet. And I suggested to her that, I said, doctors don't have any training in diet worth talking about, but why don't you just research diets and arthritis and see if you can find something, because you might as well as not. And, all drugs have side effects, and they weren't particularly offering her any effective drug for the problem she had. Anyway, she discovered lots of diets in her research of diets. And she said, well, I found one for myself, which is called the London AS diet, by a Dr. Erbinger, and she went on that and it really helped her. And she said, but I've discovered lots of other diets in my travels. And one of them is this ketogenic diet. She actually described it as a gluten-free diet, which is not strictly true in the sense of it's not about eating gluten-free products. It's about eating natural foods that haven't been tampered with, and about appreciating the amount of carbohydrate, the amount of sugars and starches in foods and how they affect your metabolism. And she said it's supposed to be helpful in avoiding diabetes and dementia. So I was very skeptical, because I thought, why wouldn't all doctors know about this? Why wouldn't the Department of Health have told doctors about this diet? But I was intrigued, so I bought the book at the time. I think I just bought the book and read it cover to cover. I probably took quite a lot of time to read it, certainly a few months, because I was really wanted to question things. So I'd read things and then I would read the internet and look at the references, and I read it very critically. And when I was into the book probably a few months, certainly a few weeks, I thought, this just sounds really sensible. And I thought if you turned it on its head, so what the book said basically was eat real food that's not been tampered with, or it's been tampered with as little as possible, say cheese, for instance, and avoid processed food. That would include anything that's got a label on with a list of ingredients, longer than about 2 or 3 or 4. And I thought, what harm would it do? And I thought to myself, if a patient came in, this is turning it on its head, if a patient came in to see me or sent me an email and said, dear Dr. McCormack, I only eat real unprocessed food, I cook it from scratch and I eat it, is that a problem? Is it a problem if I avoid additives and preservatives? I would say, well, no, it's not a problem as long as your food's not rotten, as long as your food is fresh. Yeah, so if they said I only eat fresh food and I cook from scratch, is it a problem? I'd think, well, why are you wasting my time with this? That's just ridiculous. So in a sense, no doctor should have a problem with the idea of a low carbohydrate diet. The trouble is it's just become like a label. And if you said to your doctor, rather than I'm following a low carbohydrate diet, I'm following a diet that's free of processed food, and I'm cooking from scratch and I'm really enjoying it and I'm feeling better in myself, they would probably think, why are you bothering me with this information? But you could say, the reason I'm bothering you with this really simple information is it's probably going to impact my diabetes and my blood pressure, because I'm eating a diet free of additives. So I'm probably having an awful lot less salt, and I'm certainly having a lot less sweeteners, and I'm having a lot less sugar. And as a result, my body's probably going to change. And I want you to know that the reason my body's changing isn't for some random, unfathomable reason. It's actually because I've changed my diet. So that's why I think the e-consultation, or whatever people have in their countries for letting doctors know, whether it's writing them a letter and posting it, or sending them an email, or doing an e-consultation, as is the case with my mother's local practice, just to let you know, I'm eating a natural unprocessed food diet. I'm cooking from scratch. I'm just to let you know that I'm feeling better in myself. Since I've started it, I've lost a stone. I've been able to cut down my pain medication. I'm wondering if you could do a check for my diabetes and see if I can cut down my diabetes medication. Or I've been checking my blood pressure and it's always under 120/80. And I think maybe I could drop one of my blood pressure medications, or maybe 2. It's that sort of thing that causes them the least possible hassle, doesn't ask them questions about things they know nothing about, and links in their medical records the fact that they've started a new diet and the better condition of their body metabolically.
I think it's interesting to think really that people, if I use the word again, self-medicating, they've taken their health into their own hands now and are dealing with it themselves. One thing that I advocate that they do is obviously to measure. And I know there are different measurements that people can take, but I say weigh yourself every day and keep a record of everything that you eat, so that if you're losing weight, you can see that what you're doing is working. If you're not losing weight, then you might be able to find something that you're doing that isn't working. And if it doesn't work, it can be right. And we've got a person who's reversed the type 2 diabetes, went to see the doctor, and the doctor was just, blasé about it. And so I do say to people, if you take your blood, your own blood glucose readings every morning, put them in the journal, so that when you go to see a doctor, you can take these with you and say, look, these are my blood glucose readings over the past 3 months, 5 months. It might be longer now between people's HbA1c than what was normal before. So at least that's evidence, and experience-based evidence for their doctors. Would you expect a doctor to take that and make adjustments to the medication, or would you expect them to just leave things as they are?
Well, that's a very good point. So I think it's much better to put it in an email to the doctor, not an ordinary email such as you would do to your friends, but one that's accessed via the web surgery website. Because when you do that, that gets attached to your medical record and becomes part of the record.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that we've gone through many years of people feeling really despondent about the ability of people to change. And the big thing about a low carb or a zero carb diet or a ketogenic diet, they're all variations on a theme, is that because you're dropping the addictive foods, it's a lot easier to stick to. And if people appreciate that the doctor or nurse in front of them may well have an active carbohydrate addiction, you can see where I'm coming from. So say someone was a cocaine addict, I've given up cocaine, it's really great. They might think, well, I gave up once and I'm back on it now. So, feels smug today, but you're probably going to fail tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the problem with seeing doctors face to face who've got an active carbohydrate addiction, which most people have. In this country, I estimate over 2/3 of people have got an active carbohydrate addiction. And I say that based on the fact that 2/3 of people are currently overweight. Obviously, some of them will be on a journey to and will have stopped carbohydrate. And some thin people have got, plenty of thin people have got a carbohydrate addiction. So I would think it's less stressful for a person to write and share share the information, tell the doctor, tell the nurse what they're doing, have it in a format which will be saved to the medical record. And then you can link it. So when you go in for your blood test, because you do have to physically go in for a blood test, you can say to the person taking the blood test, can you write on my blood test in clinical details, currently on a low carbohydrate diet?
Okay, that's really, really encouraging. Would it be out of the way to maybe produce a template of what could, of what could be written? So in other words, it would just be, dear doctor, for the last blah blah, I've been on blah, and these are my results, and how they would formulate it, whether they would list it or just say, and then maybe. So. And
if you keep it short, and to the point, then they'll listen and they'll take it in. Because they have to scan so many pieces of information every day. And the more people they have coming to them and saying, by the way, I follow a real food, unprocessed food diet, I cook from scratch, or I buy relatively unprocessed food like eggs and just put it in, like poach them or whatever. So, sorry, I've sort of lost my train of thought, really. But yes, I think we need to have a fairly simple template letter which they can personalise.
Would you be happy to do that?
Yeah, sure. It wouldn't take me very long. I did have quite a long version, which I've shared with you before, Treflyn.
Yeah.
But as time's gone on, I think what I've seen is that people do want this information, but maybe they don't want too much of it. And at first I was justifying my position and trying to make sure I wasn't reported to the GMC. But the more time goes on and the more real doctors who are registered with the authorities in their home country do it, the more sure I feel of myself. I mean, today I was looking at we've got a study group of 480 people where we share all sorts of information about studies, about clinical experience. And they're right through the world. There are quite a lot in the UK. Last week, your GP rang me and said he wanted to add some people to my Zoom group and my WhatsApp group for low carb. I didn't say, I think I did say Treflyn's doing some great things, but I didn't say, send them to Treflyn as well, because I think you've got enough to do. But that said, your group provides something different to mine. And I think there's something great about that space where you can share your concerns with someone who's been through it.
Yeah, one of the things that I find, and you've used the term this morning, and when people talk about the ketogenic diet, they see that circle with the macros, and it's all based on calorific value, which, as we know, has nothing to do with the way that your body metabolizes food. That was the only terminology that we had, and the nearest thing I could say, but now I've come up with a new word, which is low calofa, which is low carbohydrate, low fat. And then people are still slightly confused because they say, well, does that mean that it's high protein? Well, not really. Well, how do you count your macros? Well, you don't. You just put your meal on your plate, but you just keep your carbohydrates low. Don't put a slice of cheese on or avocados, not because it's naughty, but if you're trying to lose weight, then you run the risk of if you go into ketosis, the ketones are being produced from the fat that you're eating, and not the fat that is on your body.
And say something about my observations since I started doing what was initially a very mild ketogenic diet back in 2014. Okay, and so like you, I've got experience of a range of people who have come across. So what I'd say is that for some, I actually don't like doing macros and trying to work out what percentage, and I don't do them at all. I've never done them myself. I've helped people reverse the diabetes and come off medication without looking at macros at all.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we're all different. So some people can follow a mildly ketogenic diet, and by that I'm talking like for some people it could be on 30 grams of carbs a day and still eat fat, and achieve the goals. So if your goal, and you've got to think, what are your goals? So for a lot of people, it's losing weight, which is, and they may find they get to a plateau like you did. So they may find a ketogenic diet with very low carb and a reasonable amount of fat, whatever it makes is to make it palatable, works for them. But you find a low carb, low fat diet was necessary to get the rest of your weight off. Now, if that works, that's fine, but it also doesn't work for everybody. So I've got somebody who's been doing it and it came more like starvation for her. I think it depends very much on how you do it. And that's the thing about a ketogenic diet. It's used in epileptic children. Pearl Mutter, who was the first doctor I read about who advocated it, has a mildly ketogenic diet. But it depends. You see, some people will really heap on the fat and think, this is great, I'm on a high fat diet. My website's called Fat is My Friend. I've got a friend who's got a website called Fat is Your Friend. So if somebody eats fat and is cautious about it, I find this, some people are really frightened of fat and they're really cautious about it. And those people, you could say they're on a medium protein, medium fat, low carb diet. And that work, if it works for you in terms of getting your weight off, fab. If it works for you in terms of reversing your diabetes, fab, really, really good. For some people, they will want to cut the fat, and some people will want to keep a really tight measure of how much they have every day. But for other people, it makes them too anxious. I've got a few people in my Zoom group who get very anxious if they have to write down everything they eat and drink in a day and weigh themselves every day. And for them, I suggest that they weigh themselves once every week or maybe 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks isn't bad. And certainly have a sort of feel for what they're doing, a feel for how many if they're snacking at all versus not snacking at all, a feel for how liberal they are with their fat. But it's just feeling around. It's a bit like we're in the dark and we're trying to feel our way through a maze. And there are all sorts of options. And before, we just had the low fat option, didn't we? It was eat less, move more, and low fat should do the trick. And that suits very few people. And it didn't work, did it? It just didn't work. No, and that does not suit diabetic people because a high carb diet will always make diabetes worse. Now we've got lots of options. So we've got the whole range of ketogenic diets. When I first spoke to specialists who did ketogenic diets for children with epilepsy, they were shocked that I was using it to help people lose weight. because when they were having the impression their children were rather fat, or at least a proportion of them were. So they never would have thought of it as a weight loss strategy. But the thing is, if you get natural with fat, if you appreciate, I can olive oil.
I'm not saying don't eat bacon. I'm not saying don't fry foods. It's just that we've come across so many people, and this is my experience, who've said, I've been on the keto diet, it worked for so long, and I've stalled. And then I say, well, just cut out the fat. And they say, wow, I'm losing weight. Yeah. So, for those people.
If that works for them, that's fantastic, Treflyn.
And I just say, well, if it works for you, that's fine.
Yeah.
And that's why I ask them to journal, because if they come back and say, look, my weight loss has stalled, blah, blah, blah. Well, have a look in your journal. What have you been eating? What have you been doing? And the people who were doing that, I said, this is what I found out. So, I'm not saying you must do this or you must do that.
No.
I'm just saying this is what's worked for me, and try it. And if it works for you, that's great. If somebody said to me, look, I can suck an orange and I can eat 15 bananas in a day and lose weight, then I do that. But it didn't work for me doing that.
No, and indeed it'll push somebody's blood sugar too high, even if it does work from weight loss point of view. And they won't get enough nutrients, will they? No. So what I think what we're saying is not in conflict. I suppose what I'm thinking is that a lot of people can start off with a mildly ketogenic diet, having, normal fat. I think it was a normal fat diet. So don't have low fat spreads, have a bit of butter. And it's not a lot of butter, because you won't be having it on your toast. You might be having it on your vegetables, or on the other hand, you might have a bit of olive oil, and you won't have masses of it. It's not like you'll be sort of licking it off the plate or using a spoon to spoon it up. It's just to make it a bit more tasty and less bland. Yeah. And I think the OMAD, whenever you reach a stall, the techniques to use are things like having less meals a day and cutting snacking.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And watching the calorie-free sweetener snacks, I think those are quite a problem. A lot of people, I noticed a lady in front of me in the queue yesterday, and she had bought quite a lot of Diet Coke. And then she'd also bought donuts and things like that. So, and crisps. But you easily could get somebody who was on a low carb diet who was having, like steak and eggs and maybe some nuts, which obviously have got their own issues, but then putting in a lot of sweet stevia and Diet Coke. And I think now Coke's been marketed very cleverly. So it looks like old traditional Coke, but it's actually Diet Coke. And the sweeteners raise your insulin. And when the sweeteners raise your insulin, that lowers your blood sugar. And when your blood sugar goes lower, you go hungry. So there's that aspect to it. And also, they make you feel like you're being good, if you know what I mean. They make you feel like you've got, because you've been good, you think, I could be a bit naughty, rather than thinking, I'm just trying to develop a natural relationship with food and drink. So, tea, coffee, water. I don't tend to drink fruit juices at all because they raise your insulin. I'd rather eat an orange. You don't actually need that much fluid if, you're not it's not hot weather, for instance. You will get quite a lot from if you drink tea or coffee or have a glass of water when you're thirsty. That's fine. I would really be suggesting to people that they stop all diet products. And that probably includes, if they're up for it, things that you make, like puddings, cakes, things like that you make with lower carbohydrate ingredients. I mean, they're all right for a birthday, say, but if you've got a big family and you're having a birthday every month or every week, or you've got a workplace where they bring in cake every day or every week, it's really not a good thing. It would be better if they celebrated birthdays for everybody once a year on the same day.
That'd be a great idea.
Just have it one day.
Yeah, that would be a great idea.
But that aside, I think just getting away, no, I'm not hungry. I went out with a friend yesterday for a walk, and they had one of those cafes where you take a takeaway coffee, and they had quite a lot of cake. And I said to her, are you having a cake, or would you like a cake? And she said, I'm not hungry. And I thought that's such a sweet way to put it, really. And hardly anybody equates hunger with eating cake. But I thought it was so nice. And and I don't eat cake, as you know. I might have one piece a year, really. I might not. But it's not part of me going out and having a drink won't be accompanied by cake. But this friend of mine isn't what I'd call naturally slim. And she will actually equate eating anything with whether she's hungry or not. And that's where a lot of us need to get, so that we don't have food because it's fun. We have it because, am I hungry or not? Well, I'm not actually hungry yet.
Yeah. And the one thing that I found was that you're walking in the mall or whatever it is, you go past Greg's, you see a cake or a pasty, you see it, you want it, you eat it, and then you still go home and have your regular meal. But once you've had that pasty, you probably buy two because you can get two for £1 with a 75 pence each. So you end up eating both of them. And that's, it's so we don't eat because, as you say, we're hungry. We eat because we can. And it's just too easy now, isn't it, really? And it's very hard when you go out to go and have a meal and everything comes with chips or a jacket potato and very few choices of salads, and you don't know what's in the food anyway. But I think lockdown has done a lot of good for a lot of people. It's made them cook more at home and probably turn to their own resources and use this time to address the health issues. And that's really, really good. I think that's brilliant, that. But I want to thank you for your time today. I'm glad that we've been able to chat like this. There are things that you've spoken about. But there was one thing that you mentioned when we had a quick chat the other week, and that was talking about the medical profession who had a vending machine diet. And obviously that must be very difficult for them,
Yeah, I think it's... I think when you look at young people, say between the ages of 18 and 25, you get a couple, especially if they're medical students and they're, on the wards all the time, you get two camps. So you get the ones who really think about their diet, and maybe they go to the gym and maybe they're trying to build muscle and maybe they're really concentrating on getting enough nutrients from their diet. And then you get the ones who are really stressed, some of whom are naturally slim. And so they'll just live from, on rubbish vending machine food. And if they're naturally slim, they won't necessarily think, I need to eat more nutritious food. They won't necessarily think that. If they're inclined to get fat, they may hold back and not eat that and take along their own food. But it's a very difficult situation to be in because you just run off your feet. I remember when I was in hospital, I worked 80 hours a week. That was standard. And I'd be so disappointed if the canteen was shut. You could get reasonable food in the canteen back in the day, something that contained meat or fish. And but if it was shut, I'd be I just have that sinking feeling in my stomach if it was just the vending machine. I'd think, but I'm so hungry, I've got to eat something. And, I'd have a bag of crisps or something and a chocolate bar and think, it makes me feel so poorly. But that's what the reality. And I did see a young woman who was sitting on the stairs eating a pot noodle. And I thought that when my son went to Duke of Edinburgh, his teachers told him in advance on no account to bring pot noodles because they weren't nutritious enough. Sorry, pot noodle. But, put more nutrients in. And I don't mean vitamins. I mean, make it real. Find out how you can make something real in a pot, not something, that's just a whole pile of chemicals. So anyway, so that was it. So I think it's a shame when people don't eat real food and don't recognize the need for it, especially for doctors. But doctors who haven't thought about it and haven't studied it are the same as everybody else, really. They haven't necessarily made the connection. And the more doctors, the more we when I do the template for you, Treflyn, I will put in a little bit about how doctors can get more information at the Royal College of GPs and from myself, David Unwin, and so on. And the whole plethora of GPs who are doing it now. And the Public Health Collaboration, we have a lot more links to GPs and nurses. We've got something like maybe 250 ambassadors who can give patients and doctors information about it. So I'll put that in as well.
Okay, well, that's fabulous. Just sticking on the topic of meals, one of the things that we actually do at the Keep Fat Club is I encourage our members to post pictures of their meals. And that is very, very encouraging because we can see the range of and the variety of foods that people are eating and really enjoying it and seeing great weight loss results. But we do have members who are stalling, or some people just haven't lost any weight. And I don't know whether that's a metabolic issue or whether it's something beyond diet. I really, really don't know. But all I can say is, well, you know, if you've kept a journal, let me have a look at it and I'll see if there's anything I can spot. But I mean, I'm only an expert based upon my own experience. And I can only talk about what's worked for me, which is why I came up with the local loafer, rather than, because when people talk about keto, is they actually see that pie chart with the macros, and that's what they jump in and do, you know. But I do encourage people to find out what works for them, and if it works, it can't be wrong. If it doesn't work, it can't be right.
Yeah, that's right. We're all different. And even if we've got the same sort of journey, you know, where we've tried eating and drinking and we've yo-yoed over the years, we've tried eating and drinking different things, and maybe we've tried a low-fat diet, and maybe we've had periods of time we've put on all the weight again. And we're not necessarily the same. Some people put on weight easily, for instance, and never become diabetic. And some people become diabetic even when they've only put on a stone or half a stone. So, and we don't have enough tests to actually show. But I think you're right, Treflyn, that we've all got a slightly different journey, and you can tell people you're an expert in your body and what happened to you. And there will be other people out there who will have exactly the same metabolic issues as you, and what you've done may well work for them. We won't cure it for everybody all the time, and we will just be giving people a series of ideas, things that they can try. The biggest thing that I've learned recently is about the influence of food addiction on what we eat and drink. I mean, if I go back to the example of people who have a lot of Diet Coke, which is calorie free, why can't they stop? Why can't they just think, oh, right, okay, I never knew that, Dr. McCormack, I won't buy Diet Coke again. It doesn't work like that. You know, they'll listen, they'll think, but I like it. They'll think, but it's got no calories. They'll think, but it works for me, or at least I'm losing weight at the moment. But say somebody like that went into a plateau, you know, it might be in dropping the Diet Coke that, you know, they would start losing again. But there can be many things that people won't necessarily tell you or me, but sometimes we'll both be stumped. You know, we'll think, well, I really don't know what else to suggest. And probably there's always hope, because there are, you know, always new things that come up. Everything we talk about now wasn't talked about 10 years ago, like intermittent fasting and Dr. Jason Funk, for instance. You know, there's so many things now that I didn't know about 10 years ago. And there will be new things again. But yesterday we had that lovely email that we read about a gentleman who had cured so many of his health problems, so many things had reversed, and he was practicing one meal a day. Yeah. And it was amazing. And he was asking about autophagy and whether that was the thing that was helping his skin, helping his eyes, helping, so many different things. And probably is the answer. But I think that we always, you know, we try one thing, we try it for a while, we evaluate it and see if it works. And if it doesn't, then we think, what other intervention can we put in?
Yeah. I think, but having said that, there's a lot of bad information out there as well. So it's, again, if it's evidence and experience based, then that's the first place to start. That's the best starting place you can have. Yeah. Because there's no point if a person's driven to London, that they're the best people to actually tell you about how to get there, rather than somebody who's never been and maybe only read the map. You know.
It's very true. That's very true. And I think we have to be skeptical about the information out there. I think it's true we need nutrients. That is a truth that goes across all diets. We need nutrients. We can't live on just water and air. And where are we going to get those nutrients from? For many, it's an ethical question. And then after that, thinking about whatever we decide on ethically, how are we going to get enough nutrients from those foods that we're going to eat? And that's the big one. And I think the final one is, which foods do I need to avoid because of my particular metabolic conditions? And you know, that's, I think those things will always, those are uncontroversial. You know, obviously ethics is controversial, but once you decide, that's your choice, isn't it? And obviously your choice may change over time. But it's where I part company with some people is where they say, you know, you've got to have a ketogenic diet, or you've got to have a vegan diet, or you've got to have, I think you don't have to do anything.
No, I mean,
you do what you want, and you do what works for your body. And even if you choose to do something that isn't working for your body, that's your choice at a period of time.
People say to me, "Is it? Can I have alcohol?" I say you can have what you want. You can have beer, yeah. You can have Guinness, you can have whiskey, whatever. Everything's permissible, but not everything is beneficial. So you've got to look at what are you trying to achieve, because I found something out the other week that if a person is in ketosis and they drink alcohol, it won't kick them out of ketosis, but the ketones are made from the alcohol. So therefore, they won't be using up their body fat for producing the ketones. That's assuming that they're not eating any fat. So, and I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that before. So I just, you know, you just learn little things along the way. But people can do what they want. They can have what they want. Anything, you know, it doesn't matter to me. But there's no point in saying, I'm on OMAD and here's my meal, fish and chips, a piece of cake, you know, and I'm not losing any weight. Well, you can have what OMAD is a tool to be used in conjunction with what you're eating if you want to lose weight. I'm on weight maintenance, so I have a glass of wine every so often. I can have pork scratchings because the fat in the pork scratchings will store my weight loss. I could have a couple of biscuits, which I choose not to. So I've maintained my weight now between 11 stone 4 and 11 stone 7 for over 12 months. So it's like driving the car. You put your foot on the brake when you approach the corners, and you put your foot on the acceleration as you go up the hill. So some days I'm losing weight, other days I might be putting a bit on, but I weigh myself every day. That suits me. I write down what I'm eating because I'm happy to do that, and I can maintain my weight. So I'm not going to, if I weigh myself every 2 weeks and say, oh my word, I put on half a stone, that would be shocking for me. But, you know, it's just, I mean, fine, do what works. Do what works. That's what I say. If it works, it can't be wrong. But it depends upon what people's expectations are. And if they're expecting to lose weight, but they're eating fish and chips, then, you know, they can either carry on. But there's no point in them asking, you know, what can I do? Can I have this? Can I have that? I don't know the answer to that one. They have to do what they want. Yeah.
I think we come back to just trying to eat real unprocessed food and cooking it yourself. So if you had a piece of fish, you could poach it, or you could grill it, or you could put a bit of butter or oil on it and bake it in the oven or whatever, and just to keep it simple. The healthiest people I know who are in their sort of 80s and 90s cook from scratch. And it's very simple. It doesn't take a lot of effort, because they just have one of the ladies said to me, a nice piece of sole. She puts some lemon and butter on it, and that's her meal with a few green beans or whatever, or even by itself. And the simplicity, I think that's it. Trying to cook things that you know you can, it's not too much hassle for you, and that keeps you going with plenty of nutrients.
Yeah, and stir fries are my go-to meal because they're so easy to cook, it's so easy to prepare. I just love them. What we're looking at in here is, I'm just putting in now the bean sprouts, but I've got pak choy in there. Yep. I've got some mushrooms, I've got onion, I've got chicken, which I cook separately. So I'm just put these bean sprouts in here now. All real nutrient-dense vegetables. Yeah. And low carbohydrate, and a little bit of fat that I'm frying in. It doesn't matter for me because, you know, and I can still lose weight doing that.
Yeah, great.
Anyway,
you've done a great job, Treflyn. You've done an absolutely fantastic job, and thank you so much. And I put something to your GP today. I say your GP because for the benefit of the people who are watching, Treflyn's GP happens to be in charge of diabetes for Warrington, which is our town of 200,000 people. And he contacted me with the names of some people who wanted to join my group, which was great. And I said that in one of the other towns in England, in a general practice, they've lost a ton of weight, actually literally a ton. They measured how many people, how much weight people had lost. And I said, why don't we do that in Warrington? So I put a little proposal to him this morning and went through various quick ideas that won't cost much to get people talking, thinking, doing real food diets, lower carb diets, 1 meal a day, all that sort of thing. I mentioned you, Treflyn, and what you're doing. I talked about what we're doing in the PHC, various things. So I'll wait for him to get back and then I'll talk to you again.
Okay. Well, thank you very, very much for spending time with me this morning. Thank you for all your support, all your encouragement, and everything that you do. And it's just fabulous. I'm just, I owe where I am to your support, your help and your encouragements, and put myself in the firing line. When you said you wanted to run more support group meetings in Warrington, and I said, who's going to run them for you? And you said, I don't know. And I said, I'll do it. I mean, I just threw myself in at the deep end, but, it's worked out. And it's, I didn't plan that this was going to happen. I had no idea where I would be. I just thought, I don't know. I was just lose some weight and that would be it. Walk off into the sunset, but that wasn't what was going to happen. And I'm still on the journey, and it's an honor and the privilege to help other people and see that they're getting good results.
It is, isn't it, Treflyn? I mean, we're all it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey. It's not something you just do for a few months. Or rather, sometimes life happens, doesn't it? And sometimes people stop following their new lifestyle and go back to the old one that hasn't worked for them. And all I know is that I've been doing mine for 7 or 8 years now. I started when I was 50. So 2013, end of 2013, I started. So, and I'm still doing it. I find it very easy. It's a lifestyle. It's not a diet. And I don't really deviate from it because you don't have to do it 100% of the time. We're talking 80, 90%. I never go on to the rubbish, but, but cheating for me involves too many nuts. That's about it. I'm going to have to go because there's dogs.
Well, like I said,
at the door.
No, thank you very, very much. And
you're very welcome. Thanks,
okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So I've been keeping stuff on mute because my dog's a bit loud today.
Oh, yeah.
Right on cue.
Yeah.
Very sure. I thought I'd join. Hang on a minute. Back.
I just hope that you enjoy these small videos that we put together for you. If you do, then don't forget to join us on the Warrington Low Carbohydrate group on YouTube. Just ring the bell, just subscribe. And also, if you want to find out more about how we're fighting the war against losing weight and type 2 diabetes and other health issues, join us. Join us on the Keep Fat Club. So thanks a lot again for watching this video. Stay safe. Bye now.